All right, here we go. We've got kind of the blown up version of the graphics here. And what I want to talk about specifically on this video is going to be the dimensions. Now, you can see all kinds of different dimensions across the top, across the bottom, on the left, and on the right. And really, they're all kind of that number, dash number, dash number. That's feet, inches, and sixteenths. That is truss math. And it's one of the ways that the industry was able to computerize measurements early on in, the adoption of the personal computer being able to use to design trusses. So feet, inches, sixteenths. We've got a 28-foot span here from the outside bearing to the outside bearing. So it's a 28-foot span truss. That's 28 feet right there, 0 inches and 0 sixteenths. So let's see if it was one of those numbers up above 12 sixteenths. That gets reverted down to 3/4 of an inch. 4 would be a quarter, 8 would be half, 13 sixteenths is just that, 13 sixteenths. But it's a way to be able to use math, be able to apply calculations without using the decimals or the fractions. And that way 0.0625 isn't whatever that is, 1/8 of an inch, but it is one of those ways to kind of simplify the dimensions to where you're not always looking at fractions and you're able to do the math a little bit easier, which truss technicians have to do a terrible amount of math. So beyond that, we've got dimensions, again, that 28-foot span. We've got the overhang on the left here of 1'4". We'll talk about that in future videos. Across the top, we've got 14 feet, and that is from the bearing to the peak of the truss. This is symmetrical as far as it is along the top or the perimeter of the truss. So we've got 14 feet there. Now we've also got panel points. We've got 5'5" and 12 sixteenths, 4'4", and so on across the top there. That's going to be to the center of the joint where the vertical web and that diagonal web interact. That is going to be the dimension up there. So 5'5" and 12 sixteenths from the outside of the bearing to that. You'll notice that it's a little bit different down below, 5'4". That's because there's only one member there. So it's going to be the center of that vertical web. That is a little bit tricky, but those dimensions are important when describing a particular feature of the truss. If you need to report where, something might be wrong, a plate might be misplaced, something in the field, it's great to understand what those dimensions are actually going towards. That way you can describe it should you need to with the truss technician or the truss designer later on. So that's kind of dimensions in a nutshell. We'll talk about the heel height and the overall height. I guess let's talk about the overall height right now. We've got 7'10" and 2 sixteenths or 1/8 of an inch. That allows you to know what the height is from the peak to the top of the bearing or the bottom of the truss. Now, that is important if you're trying to figure the height of the building out, but it is not necessarily the shipping height. You can see that overhang goes down below. That would be a different dimension, and many of the proprietary truss design drawings will call that out, so don't confuse those two. So that wraps up dimensions. Let's talk about some of the features of the additional trusses in another video.